Mario is a human being who is in a search and hasn't lost hope, in a search of how can we express our best. Why I do that? Because as a physician, as a general surgeon, I have seen that there are a lot of suffering in the world. We suffer not only for physical conditions, we suffer especially for mental conflicts within ourselves. Within ourselves, we are divided. And this causes a lot of pain and violence within ourselves, and also we express that pain and that violence to other people and to the world. What do? I observe people, I stay with people, I pay attention to what is happening within myself, and from that observation, I analyze what strategies could be the best in order to tap into our inner resources, avoid being trapped by so many dysfunctional thoughts that our mind is constantly producing, so that we can experience a life with a much deeper sense of meaning, a much bigger sense of contribution, and a deeper sense of the true meaning of life. So let's say that my research started very much when I entered into the medical school around 34 years ago. And although at the beginning I was focusing on the body and the mechanical parts of the body, very soon I realized how deeply was the connection of the body with the spirit, with the human spirit. So what I try to do and what I do is to, in some way, quote unquote, discover those connections between the body, the heart, the mind, that if we allow them to really thrive, can open for us absolutely a new life, completely new life. I think we can keep our knowledge at two completely different levels. There is one level which is the intellect. So I know something, but I am absolutely unable to apply that something which I know into the real world. Most of our knowledge is stored at that level, and that's the reason why we can know a lot of things about the power of listening, and in our current lives we feel not able to listen completely to what another human being is expressing. And there is another level in which our knowledge can be stored, which I like to call the level of the muscle, which is the level of the unconscious mind. The level of unconscious mind means that you not only have the knowledge, you now are the knowledge. So whenever you do something, the knowledge goes with you. It's a practical sense and the application of that knowledge. How can we take a theoretical knowledge which is stored in the intellect to that deeper level, which is the muscle? In my experience, there are only two ways or two ingredients. The first one, you need motivation. Motivation is the pathway to the unconscious mind. If you do not attach motives, if you do not attach emotions to the knowledge, it doesn't go to the unconscious mind. And the second thing that we need to do, or the second ingredient, would be training. You need to train. So you know the importance of listening, and you try to listen because you are truly motivated, and you fail, but you keep trying and you keep trying. And that process of motivation plus taking action is what brings the knowledge from the intellect into the muscle. What happens? That many people want something but are not willing to pay the price in order to really know how to apply that something. Whether because they are not motivated enough or because they are not willing to pay the price of training, to train, to look for opportunities in what they can use that information that they already have at an intellectual level. So this is how I see things. Well, I think it's extremely important for several reasons. I think we are, as humanity, quite lost. We have lost references. We have lost the sense of what is truly valuable. We are moving around without a clear sense of purpose, a clear sense of meaning. And this is really something which is causing a lot of suffering. When we see another human being who is truly living the truth as a human being, who is doing what he's saying, who is really taking care of other human beings, who doesn't think about you and me, but thinks about we, then something within ourselves recognizes the beauty of that message. Something within ourselves vibrates in the same frequency, and we start to awake. What's the challenge? The challenge is that when you look around, there are very few people who are truly inspiring, very few people. And when these people show up, sometimes the rest of humanity treat them very poorly, because there is a part within ourselves that doesn't want to be awakened. And so for me, those people throughout history who have truly helped us get closer to the truth are absolutely needed, and especially in these turbulent times, because we are so lost. There are some human beings who have lived throughout history who truly inspire me. For me personally, the most inspiring, without any doubt, is Jesus Christ. There are other people extremely inspiring, like Lao Tse, Confucio, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Buddha, Rumi, people who are truly inspiring. And I think that all of the human beings that I have mentioned all share in common a true love for humanity. If you ask me about people who are living today, I am inspired by people who are not well known around the world. Normal people who, through their generosity, through their contribution, through the sense of purpose, are continuously offering little gifts to the people who are around them. And those gifts really are opportunities to grow and evolve. I feel very disappointed about, in general, about a lack of people who are truly thinking about, the whole humanity and not thinking only about themselves. So it doesn't mean at all that those people do not exist. Nelson Mandela, for instance, is still alive. I think that we need to reinforce much more the message that leadership has everything to do with contribution, that leadership has everything to do with leaving the ego out of the equation. The leadership has everything to do with defending values that are absolutely aligned with principles that exist in nature. Gandhi said many, many beautiful things, and he sent a lot of extraordinary messages to the rest of the world. And above all, I want to bring here a message that he said on one occasion. He said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world." So the first thing, in order to translate this, or to move from a paradigm of fear into a paradigm of trust and confidence, I think is to be more authentic as human beings. All of us have to be much more aware of the distortions that are taking place within ourselves. We really need to pay a deeper attention to the real motives, the real intentions of our actions. So the first space in order to create this world of abundance, I think, is the space in each of us. The second one is space at a bigger level. When a group of people in a family, when a group of people in a company, when a group of people in a country show that when they really create those emotional conditions, when they really care about others' feelings and needs, abundance show up, because it's the law of the universe. Scarcity is the law of our mind. Abundance is the law of the universe. So when we create those emotional bonds, then we create abundance in all senses. So in a company, if they truly care about each other, if they truly look for ways to contribute to the benefit of other people, we have seen that those companies start to thrive. And there are other people who cannot understand the success of those companies because they still live in the paradigm that only what you can measure is what really exists. And there are many things which exist and cannot be measured. So what happens that sometimes these families, these companies, these small groups in countries, because they know that they are living a different kind of life, many times they don't show up. We don't know about their existence. But if we could, show that there are companies that pay attention to the human dimension of a worker, the human dimension of all people who are involved in that company, and the result of that involvement in the emotional world of the people who work in that company is really affecting results, then the rest of the world, the people who are still living in the paradigm of fear, at least would be shaken, and they might stop and think, oh, I might be missing something. I might be missing something. I mean, a change in paradigm takes time. And this is the reason why there is a deep need of knowing who is truly making this change and offering their example, not as a way of showing that they are superior human beings, but as a way of showing that there is a way to live differently, with much less suffering, with a much bigger sense of joy and fulfillment. There are several things which really are, for me, are extremely helpful at the time of recovering my balance when I have lost it. One of the most important is physical exercise. I like to cycle. I have a bicycle, and I have experienced that when I practice sports, when I do physical exercise, when I move, I recover balance much faster. Whenever I take care of what I eat, I also experience that I recover balance better. Whenever I laugh with other human beings, like going to a good movie or going to the theater and seeing a play which is very enjoyable, whenever I laugh, I truly experience that recovery in my balance. For me, reading is essential. I try to read things that inspire me. I try to read things that make me think at a deep level. Another thing that I like is meditation. Whenever I reflect deeply upon several issues, like might be compassion or merciness, I experience really very, very deep feelings. Being with people, being with my family, being with my wife, with my children. And one of the things that, above all, I need to remember whenever I see myself out of balance is that I have to look for a space of silence. I cannot keep doing things if I have lost my personal equilibrium. I shouldn't keep doing things if I have lost my emotional balance. I have to get out of the way, look for a place where I can remain in silence, especially if it's close to nature. And whenever I look for that space of silence, of inner reflection, a deep calm comes. So these are the ways or the strategies that I use when I see that I lose my balance. Excellence has everything to do with not being reasonable. Not being reasonable at the time of trusting. Not being reasonable at the time of being generous. Not being reasonable at the time of being bold and courageous. Not being reasonable at the time of being compassionate. What do I mean by not being reasonable? I mean not being trapped by that inner dialogue that tells us, okay, I will trust him only if he shows me that he's trustable. Okay, I will give him something only if he gives me something back. Okay, I will be courageous only if I see that I have a lot of chances to win. I think that we're living in a mirage, that we're absolutely asleep, that we are not awake at all. And when we see some limits that prevent us from being more courageous, more compassionate, more generous, those limits that we leave them as if they were real, they are not real. They are limits created by our mind. It doesn't mean that I will trust everybody in all circumstances, because that's not about being reasonable or not being reasonable. That's about being insane. I mean, if somebody comes to my house with a gun, with a knife, I say, okay, get inside. I mean, it's not about that. It's about that very narrow margin between going beyond what seems reasonable for us. Because what we call reasonable prevent us from being what we could reach. I mean, being reasonable prevents me from reaching what seems to be impossible. Whenever you find yourself in a challenging situation, be sure that the ego is not playing the game. Because the only game that the ego knows to play is a game of scarcity. I win, you lose. And that deprives us of all our energy, of all our talents and capacities. So whenever we meet another human being and we feel within ourselves that sense of being above that person, of controlling that person, of dominating that person, we have to be, first of all, aware of that tendency. Second, stop it. And third, look at the other person as a brother. I think all problems of humankind comes from one only origin. We see each others as separate. We don't see the interconnection between us and the rest of the world. We have lost the sense of one. And unless we recover in our daily lives, in our normal conversations, that sense of oneness, that sense that we are one, I think we do not have a future. But if we, in those small occasions in which we meet another human being, we try to live as people who truly understand that we are absolutely interconnected. We all have fears. We all have dreams. We all have struggles. We all have worries. Then we would treat each other in a different way. Currently, we do not see human beings as human beings. We see people as objects. We do not love people. We use people. If they are in the way, we take them out of the way. If they can help us to reach our goals, then we use them. But we have lost that dimension, and we urgently need to recover that dimension. Because if we recover that dimension when we treat each other, then we rise to a completely different level. the goal to help people to truly experience a deeper sense of purpose and a deeper sense of meaning. There are people who are very, very, very prestigious going there. People like Patricia Churlin or Michelle Gazzaniga or many other people. And also, very important, because I am looking forward to meet Patricio. I have heard a lot of great things about him, so I also would like to meet him personally.